In tonight's Business Insider, the fiduciary rule. Today, the Obama administration acted to require brokers who recommend investments for retirement savers to meet a stricter standard. Now they must act as fiduciaries or trustees who are obligated to put their clients' best interests first. Joining me with the latest is Jason Howell, Family Wealth Advisor at Jason Howell Company. All right, Jason, these rules have been the target of heated lobbying campaigns from the financial industry and consumer advocates. Who won?
Consumers won, Morris. Consumers and about 75,000 financial planners and advisors who actually supported this rule. This is the most important retirement act coming out of Washington, D.C. since the Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974.
Wow.
Now, that 74 Act mandated that employers who create retirement accounts act as fiduciaries for their employees. What this 2016 Act is requiring of every banker, every insurance agent, every financial advisor is that they keep that same duty of care or be willing to face legal liability.
The fiduciary rule will be phased in starting a year from now. Full compliance will be required by January of 2018. How will it change the way people invest?
It'll change it in a couple of ways, but most importantly in the way or the who that people invest with. And the number one in how it'll change the way they invest, fees will be more recognizable, more available, more disclosed, which will be sort of a help. But with who they invest with, as I said, there are about 75,000 advisors who actually supported these rules. These are people that are members of different little networks like the XY Planning Network, of which Jason Howell Company is a member, the Garrett Financial Planning Network, which the president outlined specifically as the kind of organizations that people should work with. So here's a little exercise for the people watching this at home. Tomorrow morning, contact your advisor. Ask them, are they a fiduciary now or are they waiting till 2018? And if they say they are a fiduciary, ask them if they would be willing to put it in writing. You might be surprised by their answer.
Good point, Jason. All right. The Treasury Department also announced new steps this week to discourage inversions. That's when a U.S. company relocates their business interests on paper to take advantage of lower interest to lower overseas tax rates. Now, President Obama says these latest actions will make the tax system more fair.
We've had another reminder in this big dump of data coming out of Panama that tax avoidance is a big global problem. It's not unique to other countries because, frankly, there are folks here in America who are taking advantage of the same stuff. A lot of it's legal, but that's exactly the problem. It's not that they're breaking the laws, it's that the laws are so poorly designed that they allow people, if they've got enough lawyers and enough accountants, to wiggle out of responsibilities that ordinary citizens are having to abide by.
All right, Jason, what kind of impact will these regulations have on companies? How will they impact the stock market?
Well, the impact will be slightly significant. That's a weird phrase to throw out. But companies are going to find ways to avoid taxes. That's what happens when there's a failure of actual fiscal policy. For years and years, we've been promised tax reform from this administration, other administrations. We haven't had major reform in the tax code since 1986, 30 years ago. We had a Republican president, a Democratic Congress, and they got work done, which eliminated a lot of loopholes. Until we have that, we're going to see companies finding some way to reduce their tax liability because that's their fiduciary duty to their stockholders. And in regards to the market, I mean, we saw today Pfizer could not merge with Allergan. Pfizer didn't get hurt that much. Allergan dropped a little bit. But what you'll see with these companies is they're going to just find new ways to work with things. Allergan may actually start buying companies in the U.S. rather than a U.S. company like Pfizer buying companies overseas. It's going to be very interesting, but companies won't quit until the Congress actually makes some changes.
Hooray, good point, if and when they get there. All right, let's switch gears. Last month we talked about how elections impact the stock market. This week, more evidence. Here's Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump speaking in Wisconsin on Monday.
We're in a bubble, big bubble. Could be a really ugly bubble. You know what that is, right? Bubbles. Bubbles aren't pretty. We've had bubbles. And when they burst, it's not a good thing. And what I said is we're going to go into a massive recession. But I also say, if I'm president, that's not going to happen.
So, bubbles. How do statements like these impact the market? Are they irresponsible?
Well, in a couple of words, they don't affect the market. I mean, if it's Janet Yellen making a comment, we're going to parse every phrase, every preposition she uses. But the market is sophisticated enough to know that when a front runner in a primary is speaking, it's mostly politics. We see this with the Republican leader. We also see this with the Democratic, not front runner, Bernie Sanders. But he did win 6 of the last 7 states. He does have a lot of momentum on his side, and he has the biggest crowds, mostly by being negative around Wall Street. What we are going to see, my guess, is a little bit of a switch when we get to the general election. You know, most politicians know that the best bet is betting on the American people. And just like financial markets, politics is a bet on the future. We've seen this with Kennedy, we've seen it with Reagan, we've seen it with Obama, and I think these politicians are going to bet on the American future come November.
And let me just add, and I'm sure you agree, if this were a president, not a candidate, but the president saying, yeah, we might have a recession, boom, it becomes almost self-fulfilling. Wall Street would react if it were the president.
Yes, they would.
All right. Before you go, the market has been down and up this week. What's driving the decline? Oil prices, signs of weakness in Europe, other factors?
Well, you're right in that there's a lot of noise, Morris, and there's been a lot of volatility this year. We're just about a quarter in. But if we look at the end of last year, so New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2015, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was about 17,425. If we look at where it is today, or where it has been today, it's still about 17,600 last I checked. That's up 1% from last year. So there's been a lot of noise, but not a lot has changed. What you find is this is exactly why we need that DOL fiduciary rule. Most people who make money in the financial world make money on transactions and commissions they get on transactions. Wouldn't it be nice if we had advisors that just got paid for their advice?
Good point. We'll leave it at that. Jason Howell, Family Wealth Advisor at Jason Howell Company. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me, Morris.